Bernard Taviscian's Blokus, which debuted in 2000, was not the first game to use polyominoes as player pieces. As far as I know, that credit goes to Alex Randolph, whose two-player game Pankai debuted in 1960, with this design being re-released in the late 1960s as a 2 to 4 player game called Universe that had a tie-in to 2001: A Space Odyssey, with stills from the film on the box cover, which was interesting given that the game did not appear in the film. Apparently, scenes were filmed with Hal facing off against Dave in this polyomino-based game, and then before the film actually went to print, it was replaced with them playing chess, because that was a more familiar game and gave the audience a familiar touchstone in the strange world of 2001. In any case, Blokus was not the first, but it's definitely been the most successful game, influencing lots of other game designs over the past 20 years. It's had lots of spin-off titles such as Blokus Duo and Blokus 3D, which was originally released under the name Rumus. It was not a Blokus title at all. It was not from Bernard Taviscian, but it was licensed and repackaged with the 4 colors of Blokus and that colorful packaging and presented to a mainstream audience because it works. It plays similarly to Blokus, but it was not the same. There's lots of different ways to use the Blokus core, where you are trying to place your pieces down that they are adjacent only at a corner, not side to side, and you can use that in many different ways. Mattel bought the design in the late 2000s, and it's released spin-offs of its own, including the Blokus Dice game that came out in 2019. I did a separate video overview of that if you're curious. I'll include that link in the description. It also released Blokus Puzzle, which is a one-player logic puzzle game that again uses that same principle of your pieces touching only at the corner. But now you're not playing against someone else, you are competing against the 48 puzzles that are included in the box. Let me show you how that works. Here are the components of Blokus Puzzle. You have 48 puzzles in 3 different types with 16 puzzles of each type. You have the familiar 21 pieces that represent all the different ways that 1 to 5 squares can be assembled together. These pieces are double-sided and raised so that they stick in the plastic grid that's included and they will not fall out of the grid. In case you were playing in the back of a car or on a plane or something, although you're using only a few pieces at a time, so you'll need some way to hold all these pieces and keep them from falling on the floor. To solve a puzzle, you are going to take it and slide it into the grid. You get the pieces that are shown on the bottom. So in this case, this one, and this one. And in the blue puzzles, you must connect the 2 blue pieces that are already depicted in the grid. You cannot go over any of the black pieces that represent an opponent's piece, and you must follow the familiar Blokus rules in which you do not touch your own pieces except at the corner. So you can place the pieces in as you wish, trying to solve them. Of course, this does not work. I would need a 3-piece instead of the 4, so this is not the right way to solve it. So you can fool around and try different ways and see how different things fit together. Nope, not an option. And eventually you may figure out the solution. And if you see it, you can say, okay, that's correct, but you can also prove it by sliding the puzzle card out. You can just hold it next to it, or you can slide it into the holder and you'll see that your pieces overlap exactly with what's depicted on the card. The rules do not state that each puzzle has a unique solution, but as far as I know, they do, or at least every solution I found has matched up with what is depicted on the cards. With a yellow puzzle, you must use the pieces depicted to cover all of the stars that are shown in the grid. So in this case, I need this piece, and this one, and I must cover this star. But beyond simply covering the star, I have to use all 3 of these pieces. I must fit them in and not overlap any of the black pieces. And let's see if I remember how to do this upside down. You do this one, and this one, and this one. There you go. Cover the star. And again, you can double check to see how it works. As you go on, you're going to use more pieces. You're going to have more stars, and things will get more challenging as you work your way through these puzzles. So 3 stars in the later ones, 1 initially. This one works the same way, where you're going to have more pieces and try to fit them in. This one gives you a little starting point, of course, because you can't go on 3 of these corners, so you know you have to start here. Not all of the puzzles are that forgiving in terms of telling you how to start, such as this one, which has multiple starting points for everything. Okay, see a few of them there. For the red puzzles, you must place the pieces in the grid without covering any of the X's. So you often won't even use a lot of this space here just because you can't reach it with the pieces that are given. And it's kind of interesting because you don't know where the end points are, where the limits for where your building are. So it's interesting to have that out there, all this room and not knowing exactly what you're building into. So in this case, you're using these 4 pieces. You have to build up. So I could build in here. I could put a square here. This is getting me nowhere. Oh, is that it? There we go. Done. And you can see the puzzle here. And of course, these puzzles increase in difficulty just like the other ones, giving you more pieces or harder shapes in which to build as you progress through the different puzzles. There's an overview of Blokus Puzzle, which I played with on and off many times since receiving a review copy from Mattel in 2018 when it debuted. If you are familiar with Blokus, then you already know everything you need to know. You can apply lots of the skills that you have learned from the game to solving these puzzles. If you are not familiar with Blokus, you are missing out on a fantastically brilliant, easy to learn game. I highly suggest playing, mostly because it works immediately. You are given a whole bunch of pieces, you're placing them on the board, starting from the corner, you're building out with your pieces, and you're trying to place as many of your pieces as possible on the board. More particularly, you want to end up with fewer squares left over that you have not placed than each other player. And if you do that, you win. So initially, you're just placing pieces together, I fit, but you start learning tricks on how to cordon off different areas of the board so that no one else can get in, and you can build in those later after everything else gets filled up and locked down. Or you can learn how to pass through other people where you can touch other people's pieces, just not your own. So I can abut someone else and they will pass by at the corner and I'll pass by at the corner and we'll each gain space in this other area. But then you want to start blocking people off so that only you have access to certain areas. It's fantastically simple, yet the more you play, the more skill you learn and the more challenging it is to try to defeat other people. You don't need to play the game, though, to do these puzzles, because I've already talked about everything you need to know. Pieces touch only at the corner, don't cover opponent's pieces, don't go outside the grid. That's it. That's all you need to know. These puzzles work fantastically well with the Blokus principle and just as logic puzzles on their own. You have the 3 different types that all start at an easy level and get more challenging differently as you progress through them. So they provide different skills. If you get up to a certain level, oh, I just can't get this one. Well, you can start one of the other types and build up there and then maybe shift back to the other one. You go back and forth through all of them. And often you can just start again, because I have found that this set of puzzles in particular, unlike a lot of the other logic puzzles I've talked about or that I will talk about in the future, I don't remember them, or at least I don't remember how to solve them. And I don't know if it's just the particular nature of looking at these types of puzzles, or they're all polyominoes and they all sort of blur together as you're looking at them over time, but I find that I don't remember the solutions for them. Maybe it's just a pattern of me working through a lot of them at once and they're all sort of blurring together in my head. With a lot of logic puzzles, you're learning particular tricks that help you through the puzzle set. And that's good because you learn how to use a system and figure out different ways to sort of turn the gears and have everything work. And then you apply what you've learned to later, more difficult puzzles. And Blokus Puzzle kind of works like that, but it's more about working together with all these multiple pieces. And I find that I don't remember the solution. So I will solve puzzle, I'll do a whole bunch of them, and then I'll look at it again in a month and I will not remember how to solve them. Maybe it's just a case of me getting old and forgetful and not remembering things that I remembered better when I was younger. But I find that I can look at these again and pull out those pieces and not remember how they worked. And so I have to solve them again, figuring out, okay, well, this area, this piece can fit in one of these 4 areas. Which one of those is correct? How am I going to fit everything else in to reach that? You know, there's different skills that you can still apply, but I don't remember particular solutions, whereas sometimes you just remember, okay, this piece has to end up here in order to get this solution. This one, I don't do that. So they're open to me again, and they're more repeatable than I find some other logic puzzles to be, just because they're more forgettable, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's more, I don't remember particular solutions, which gives me a reason to break it out again and play it anew. So there you go. Blokus Puzzle.